From May this year, the Ghana Status Code Service would have a new way of measuring the size of the economy. This is after it completes the process of changing the year of the way of calculating the GDP estimates for Ghana. The following report explores the new challenges this exercise would bring and benefits to businesses.
According to the Ghana Statistical Service, the exercise, which started in 2016, has been influenced by best international practice, where countries have to review the way they measure their economic growth to conform with current trends. The country in 2010 rebased its economy, with 2006 being made the base year. The recalculation increased the value of the economy in 2010 by 75%, from 25 billion Ghana cedis to 44.8 billion Ghana cedis. It was considered necessary, according to some analysts, as the old national accounting system did not take into account important emerging sectors of the economy, such as communications, the oil sector activities, and other engagement in the economy. The development could make the economy bigger than the current monetary value of 200 billion Ghana cedis, at a growth rate of almost 8%. The exercise, just like what happened in 2010, could increase substantially the value of the economy, which could help deal with the challenge of the high debt-to-GDP ratio and possibly give government the room to borrow more, only if it's aimed at infrastructure projects or finance the rising deficit. A bigger economy could also give some investors an indication that they could be getting more or some good returns on their capital. On the other hand, a bigger economy could put pressure on government to get more in terms of taxes or development that could force them to hike rates or actually get more taxes for the populace to make up for the new size of the economy.
Georgia, if you put in all of that in perspective for us, but is the economy ready for this move, and how would the exercise really be carried out? Economist and former official at the Ghana Statistical Service, Ebu Duncan, has been speaking to Joy Business.
To benchmark the economy into a current year or a closer year that will reflect the structure, the current structure of the economy. Why do we usually do that? You do that because the economy is dynamic, production processes change, input-output ratios change, new goods and services come into the country, which at times the statistician, overlooks it, or not intentionally, but are not known to the statistician to include it in the GDP. So you take all these things into consideration. So with time, you try and then review your methodology, and then review your data, and then your sources, and then all this. So it takes a lot of changes to do that, especially in countries like ours, where we keep fixed base rates, base years for a long period. In the advanced countries, US and others, the base period for instance, 2018 will be 2017. So they do what we call chain linking. So they don't have those problems. But for countries like us, for instance, Ghana is 2006. That is the base year. And even before it was rebased, it was 1993. That was the base year.
Help me out. So what actually goes into this thing? We hear that in this situation, they've started as in 2016. What goes or what is going into this whole review in measurement of the economy?
Okay. What you try to do is you try and then look at the gaps that has been created as the economy progresses. You also look at the way that you were measuring some of the activities because of lack of data. Then you also look at the price relatives. They also, change over time. And then you also look at the input-output structure of the companies in the economy.
Well, the Private Enterprises Federation, PEF, has also been reacting to this. It says it will be a disincentive to rebase the economy less than 8 years after the previous rebasing exercise was done. CEO of PEF, Nana Sebonso, is worried it will cut the private sector and government off a lot of credit opportunities. So far, he says the rebased economy has not added much to the real activities of the economy.
Rebasing the economy, it's been one of the reasons why we haven't really had access, or that's basically one of the reasons why we were brought up to middle income status at the lower ranking. It's very likely that we'll be doing another rebasing again after 8 years. Exactly how has the past rebasing affected business and access to credit, and also this new one that is going to be happening?
Well, I'm not privy to any discussion as to rebase the economy. But my position and the position of most of the members of the council is that don't glorify yourself of things that you're not. When we jumped up into calling ourselves the middle income, were we really middle income? We cut ourselves off some sources of concessionary facilities that we could have taken advantage of. So just calling yourself jack of all trades when you know you're master of none doesn't make you the efficient institution that we want. So if we're going to do rebasing, it got to be based on actual numbers that justify that, yes, we have achieved status of A, B, C, D before we can, not the fact that, oh, rebasing Ghana is now rebased and we now middle, instead of lower middle income, the next thing you know is middle income, and then, but what does that do to the economy? How does that affect the livelihood of the citizenry? How does that affect businesses that operate within that environment? So rebasing is not just an art. It has to be justified means of doing things that will enhance the profitability of business, enhance the livelihood of people, and grow the economy in leaps and bounds, as the president has said. We want to wean ourselves off aid. If we're going to do that, we wean ourselves off in a vacuum. What is in replace to replace the aid? Do we have enough revenues that will be generated to replace the aid? So we have to look at the various angles that we bring together, aggregate them to be able to do what we need to do, instead of just jumping up and say rebasing from 1 to 1.5 or from 1.5 to 2. I think that exercise would be done with much openness, and that once the government thinks through it and is going to do it, I think it will be done in a way that would actually use the practicality of the economy instead of just the numbers that we're talking about.
And just in case you're wondering what all of this means, the new rebasing exercise, which started in 2016, would see the addition of new items to be considered. It would also move the base year from 2006 to 2013 in calculating the GDP for the economy. The exercise could increase the size of the economy significantly after a recent review even pushed the country into a lower middle income status. Now, let's hear from Dr. Erica Stacy, who thinks the rebasing is required.
The last rebasing was done in 2006. That was the base year. Wasn't done for I think 15 years. Since 1993, we didn't do any rebasing until 2006, and we all saw the changes that it brought to the economy. I think now they've committed themselves to reviewing this every 10 years, and I think the time is due. That the last one was 2006. A lot of structural changes have occurred in the economy, and that had to reflect in the GDP. And so I think it's a good thing that they rebase the economy to see the actual size of this economy, because a lot of things had come now. We have the social media all over the place. We have internet data, people buying data here and there, and the e-business thing, and all of that have to be captured in the GDP. And I'm sure if that is done, we're going to see a much bigger size.
What will be the impact on the economy? Because some are saying that if the economy is bigger than what we thought, more revenue for us?
Well, exactly, but these are often they remain numbers, all right? You are now going to capture what is already there. The economy itself is what it's producing now, but in terms of giving you the fiscal space, because if the base is going to expand by way of the numbers changing, then it means that, well, it's not as that bad as you think. You now have enough fiscal space to borrow, because you're going to have a much bigger space for that would then bring your debt to GDP ratios down, which then means that you have to then, you can borrow. But it also means that your tax revenue to GDP will also fall. Then means that you are really not doing well in terms of your tax collection. So you have to step up, because the economy has the potential to give you much more revenue than it's doing now.
We are moving on now, and the National Coordinator for the One District, One Factory Secretariat, Giftiohin Kunedu, says the Ghana Export and Import Exim Bank has approved 7.7 million cedis to finance the entire Ekumfi Fruits and Juices Company Limited, located in Ekumfiabro in the Central Region. Speaking to JoyNews on progress made in facilitating the program, Madam Kunedu revealed that 3 agro-processing projects are currently ready for salt cutting, having met evaluation requirements.
An amount of 7.7 million Ghana cedis was approved for Ekumfi. In fact, the first tranche has been released. So if you go to the site now, you find engineers there at the sites. They have acquired some implements to facilitate the process. So work is going on at Ekumfi. 4 are ready for salt cutting. When I say ready, then it means that they have full financial cover. The community has also accepted the projects, and they have markets for the project. So that's what it means. So sometimes I'm hesitant to talk about projects until I'm confident that everything is. This is an entirely new concept. And if you know about project implementation, it goes through stages. You have to get your concept right. You have to get the investment framework right. You have to get all this. So if you look at projects, they go through phases. But we managed to go through all these phases and get 69 projects to the various financial institutions. So we did very well. We had challenges. For instance, we talk about the Chinese facility, but we had to agree on certain terms with them. And as I speak now, we are still finalizing the agreement. But our local banks are doing very well. So as I speak, we have 69 projects with our local bank. 4 of them are ready for salt cutting. We don't go too much into land acquisition because the project eventually will belong to somebody, to the private person. It will not belong to government. So when we only come in when there are problems that we can manage. We are here to facilitate. Everything belongs to the private sector. So if you have problems with the land, then we'll link up with our district chief and municipal executives to look at the issues and see how they can resolve them.
In other news tonight, the Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana has added its voice to calls for the Bank of Ghana to accept the introduction of cryptocurrencies in the country. Speaking with Joy Business, Chief Executive of the CIP, Anthony Opong, said Ghana cannot escape the invasion of digital currencies, which are gathering momentum in some countries. He thinks the Bank of Ghana should begin setting some guidelines for its operations in the country rather than ban its operations.
Bitcoin is a digital currency used in transacting investments among businesses in the banking industry. The digital-based currency allows transactions to be mainly carried out through the internet. According to the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Anthony Opong, the acceptance of the currency in many banking environments around the globe is an indication that Ghana cannot escape from its application. He thinks the BOG should begin setting some guidelines for its operations in the country rather than placing a complete ban on its operation.
It's not peculiar to Ghana, I see. So, I mean, if that's what the international banking community wants and that's what they've embraced, we cannot isolate ourselves from it. We don't work as island. We work as a community. And therefore, if it is something that is globally accepted, what we need to know, they want to see what is in it. What are the benefits that we can derive as a country, as an industry in Ghana, and therefore what would we need to know about it, and then what kind of equipment, how do we equip our people so that they also come to terms with it. I wouldn't say Bank of Ghana should prevent it. Bank of Ghana should take time to study it, come out with a regulatory framework if there's a need for that, and then we can pick it from there.
Anthony Opon spoke to Joy Business at the 6th annual Thanksgiving of the Institute in Accra. Addressing the members, President of the CIB, Reverend Patricia Sapor, urged bankers to acquaint themselves with the ongoing digitalization in the financial sector.
Is the cryptocurrency or are the cryptocurrencies a threat to banking? This is something we need to consider seriously. Because so many years ago when mobile banking came, nobody ever thought that mobile banking will evade the whole banking industry right now. So what are we doing about the crypto? Will the cryptocurrency disrupt banking or the banking systems, especially the remittances? How do we position ourselves to face the crypto environment in the near future? It may have its ups and downs, but I think that going forward, these are some of the things we need to be thinking about. As the world is changing, we need to position ourselves, which is why the Chartered Institute of Bankers will continue to align to the digital environment and ensure that we churn out digital savvy, bankers who are abreast with technology and the needs of the time.
The Institute will be doing more to enhance the skills of members in 2018. The Food and Beverage Association is warning the introduction of the tax stamp policy would face some implementation challenges. The policy was started last week as part of efforts by government to check tax abuse by companies and prevent revenue leakages in the system. Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association, Samuel Agri, spoke earlier on the marketplace.
We expected to have a common ground where we can implement this policy and then for it to take off smoothly. Unfortunately, we've not had that. Now, we met with government the last time and they introduced us to other machinery where you need to affix your stamps and all these things. And we realized that we are being shortchanged, if let me put it that way. And therefore, we cannot go ahead if we need to implement this policy as a country, because there seems not to be any seriousness on the side of government, let me put it that way, as to how they really want to deal with the shortfalls of revenue. Tax stamp shouldn't be a problem for industry, but as we see it now, most businesses, or let me say importers, possibly may have to stop importing certain products if it comes to carbonated drinks because of the way we need to affix stamps and all that. If it comes to the bottling industry, you need to invest not less than $1 million before you can expand your facility to ensure that you're able to affix the stamps for government to get the revenue that they want. And with that one, it will be very difficult. As I speak to you now, most of the industries are still in a quagmire because they don't know exactly how they are going to go about it. And if you are not careful, you'll be victimized you'll be a victim. So we are saying that, look, if it's the revenue that you want, then let us employ certain other avenues where we can get the revenue that you want.
We are turning to the housing sector now, and the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, GREDA, is painting a gloomy picture of the housing deficit in the country. Acting Executive Director of GREDA, Samuel Amegaibo, who spoke with Joy Business, said the situation has worsened over the past few years and lamented the way government is handling the housing issues. This was after an American investment firm, Overseas Private Investment Corporation, provided $60 million to the Ghana Home Loans Bank to help focus on mortgage lending for lower and middle income earners.
According to Acting Executive Director of GREDA, Samuel Amegayibo, the state of housing deficit in Ghana has worsened over time. He said the current housing deficit in the country is now about 2 million. He expressed disappointment at the way government is handling the issue.
It's unfortunate that the truth of the matter is that our housing situation has worsened, and it is worsening because we haven't done enough to confront the issues which will at least bring us to a neutral level where we can say, okay, at least we are not incurring more deficits, but we are providing what we need to go. No, we haven't done that. You see that the houses that are being put on the market has all been purely private initiatives, and the announcement of certain units of houses in the name of government, you yourself can go around and see whether those houses have actually been fully developed. The Kufuor government tried 5,000, it was never completed. Now we hear Senate and State Housing have taken over to try and complete some of them.
To support the housing sector, the U.S. Government Development Finance Institution, known as the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPEC, has provided a $60 million investment facility to GHL Bank. The bank is currently partnering the Apollonia City to help construct affordable houses. Speaking to Joy Business after a tour at the Apollonia City, Vice President of OPEC, David Bohigian, assured of the U.S. commitment to help address the housing deficit in Ghana.
We are working with Ghana Home Loans, and Ghana Home Loans has worked with Apollonia City. We think that Ghana requires more affordable housing. There's a major gap there, and for OPEC to be able to help contribute to that, I think will help build stable communities here in Ghana. Ghana is the largest investment that OPEC has in Africa, and here at the Apollonia City, we're proud to partner with Ghana Home Loans as well as Rendezvous to open up a facility that's going to create a wonderful community here.
The CEO of Apollonia City, Bright Owusu Amofra, lauded government on fast-tracking the granting of the Special Economic Zone status to the company.
I think we've had fantastic support from government in relation to the Special Economic Zone. It's something that they are taking very seriously. We've had several follow-up meetings on the back of that. And so I think it's very positive. They support us, they like that idea. They certainly know that Special Economic Zone, for instance, will open up the entire area. Last time we interviewed, that's what I said. If we're able to bring jobs here, we're able to bring companies that are willing to spend a number of millions of dollars to open up the Kwankatamanso district, we'll go a very long way to create jobs, which is what government wants to do. So in a nutshell, we've had fantastic support and it's going very well.
Now, hundreds of participants from across Africa and the world and the Chambers of Commerce and Investment Authorities are expected to grace the annual Pan-African Business Conference, Crystal Ball Africa 2018. The event will also provide advanced insights on policies that will impact businesses in Africa in 2018. The event, which is hosted by ABN David and other partners across Africa, will provide a forum for business professionals in Africa to discuss issues that will impact on their businesses in the new year. The theme for 2018 is expanding businesses and trade across Africa, opportunities arising out of the Continental Free Trade Agreement and growing intra-Africa trade. Senior partner and executive chairman of ABN David, David Ofosu-Dorte, tells us more.
We look into the future only up to a one-year perspective. Over the next 360 or so odd days, what is going to happen to the economies and businesses of Africa is as simple as that. So it is always on the second Wednesday of every January. The date is already booked and blocked, and that is when we bring businesses from across the continent into Ghana. Of course, the venue may change. There's another country pitching for it. But we've so far done it in Ghana. This is where we initiated it. And we simply look at what will happen to the economies of Africa in the coming year. What do you need to know that you don't know? What may change? How may that affect your business? What are the opportunities emerging that you need to take advantage of? And we look at it from a cross-cutting perspective. However, there is a slant to it. In every year, we look at what we think is the biggest changing factor, and we try to make that the theme. So, for example, a couple of years ago, we had Africa Rising as a general theme, and we looked at what was causing Africa's rise. And then last year, we looked at the Africa opportunity and the solutions, looking for problems. And even though it may look counterintuitive, we realized that there were a lot of financing opportunities which were not finding the right measure of well-packaged businesses to fund.
Right.
Yeah, and that became the theme, and it was all over. But this year we are focusing on intra-African trade. It's growing 15%, not enough as compared to the average of 35 to 60% of rate of trade in other continents.
Turning focus to our interview of the day, we are still interested in establishing a bank in the long term, but the approach is going to be different. That's coming from the CEO of the Association of Ghana Industries. The association was initially looking at establishing an AGI bank to focus on financing the needs of industries. However, following government's plan to establish a national development bank by merging ADB and the National Investment Bank, the association now wants to revise its notes. Sechuma Kwabwa is chief executive.
Interview of the day. We've made some progress as far as financing of AGI members and businesses and industry is concerned. Of course, originally we thought of it as a bank and we started the process. But you asked the question, is it being reviewed? Yes, it's been significantly reviewed and we've adopted a slightly different approach. Instead of going full-blown banking, we think that we should rather have a fund that is providing industry with some capital. And that arrangement is a bit different from typical banking operation, you know, because you realize that if you don't start with a fund, first of all, meeting the minimum capital requirement itself is a challenge. Industries need the money. How would they come and put their money in the bank and make it work the way you expect? So that in itself is a bit of a challenge. But the other critical thing is that if you operate like a bank, the regulation and the arrangements are a bit different from operating a fund. With a fund, you can get relatively cheaper funds, which can then on-lend, you know, at a more competitive pricing and on long-term basis to your industry. So that is the approach we are using now. And indeed, we have started the process, you know, and we've gone quite far with that. So the idea of ultimately having a bank hasn't been completely abandoned, but it's not the immediate. Interview of the day.
And that's it for Business Live. My name is Daryl Kwal. Thanks for watching. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business.